Welcome back to another episode of The Human Condition. This is your host, Dia, and today it's going to be a little bit different. We're starting a new series of this podcast in a new venue and quite a new format. Normally, these podcasts are in an audio format. So we're sitting down with a close and dear friend of mine, Waleed. And Waleed, for the people that don't know you, you're a photographer, started off in the music scene in the UAE, documenting a lot of photos there. Your background is in oil and gas.
Yeah,
you've done engineering, some years in oil and gas. And you were one of the very first people that kind of influenced me and kind of, we were back and forth around the business around content production.
Yeah.
And I remember the days when I was leaving insurance, we were just chatting about, is this even possible? Is it possible to actually be a creator, a full-time creator? And I think there was a lot of back and forth. And until today, I think 4.5 years later, we're both in the industry of creativity and content creation. And thanks to you.
Thanks, I'm glad you bring it, because sometimes I forget that happened, but then you go back to it, and I always sometimes when I tell the story, I'm like, look, me and Dia were sort of in the same place, and we took completely different paths in the same industry, but I think we're both doing very well. But it's completely it's
different directions.
It's almost the polar opposite business models.
Yeah, it's true.
So whatever works. Yeah,
100%. And I just wanna bring it back to the many conversations that we had around the viability of being a full-time creative, and even down to the point where I remember you were kind of giving out this information around how do you calculate your rate, and there's all these formulas on your website to help people to put a rate card for their day and their time. Because at the end of the day, we're selling our time and expertise, right? So that was a cool process. But along the way, there was a lot of anxieties that I faced, right? And there was a lot of ups and downs and uncertainties. And I think to a certain degree, being a creative, you have to be okay with the uncertainty. You just have to be okay with the idea that you're not going to know if this phone's going to ring tomorrow and you're going to be working, right? And I'm sure you've experienced that as well.
Yeah. And I still do, and it's never a lesson that I can go back to. It happens every year. And I kind of try to prepare myself for that, but it still happens. Especially this year. Actually, this year was a bit longer because of COVID. So is this gonna come back?
Exactly. And if it does come back, what is it gonna come back to? Right. Look, I think because this is a new format, I forgot to do something. I forgot to turn the incense on. So the context of this, which literally we just came up with 5 minutes ago, the length of this podcast is going to be the length of however long this incense is going to be burning. So if you guys are listening to this, make sure you check it out on YouTube as well so you can see the context and the setting. We're going to turn the incense on and we're going to start. All right. I think we're good.
I think you're good. I think you just made it faster. Now we have less time.
There we go. Cool. Yeah. So, look, I want to bring you back to the phone calls we used to have during lockdown.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I remember, you were back in Abu Dhabi and I was in Dubai, and it was a very, very uncertain time. And I think if you were to define that feeling, right? If you were to kind of go back to that feeling, how would you define that feeling?
It was sort of do I continue on my path, or do I need to pivot, and do I need to pivot hard? So we were having conversations. I think that between us, you were thinking from a larger business model, how does my business survive? And I have all these people that rely on my business, and their livelihoods are in my hands. Whereas for me, it's actually just me and my family that's in my hands. And I could pivot faster than you probably. Mm-hmm. So do I want to continue in this creative field, or do I pivot to something else? And I don't know if you remember, I tried to start this virtual coffee shop.
Yeah. I logged in a few times. Yeah.
And it was this super uncertain time where everybody's going to be online, and nobody's going to get back to real life, and let's start to build stuff that's online, and let's try stuff. It was super, super uncertain, and the ideas just went crazy. you know. And I think that's also that's also a good thing, you know, like when you need to come up with something new or change something, at least you have it in you to try something, you know.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the fact that, you know, we were trying to reimagine the future, and we were trying to imagine what tomorrow is going to be like, and like you're saying, like there was a level of anxiety there. But it's interesting that you said that it pushed you to create something new, and that's exactly what I want to talk about. Is how for a lot of creatives, we live with anxiety, and a lot of the times, you know, mental health is a topic that a lot of people are discussing right now. But the question is, how do you manage anxiety and allow it to be the inspiration or the fuel that gets you up in the morning and actually gets you to create, right? So there's, of course, different levels of anxiety. There's levels where you're crippled by it and you cannot really manage that feeling, and then it affects you badly. But there's that level of anxiety that allows you to, you know, wake up and chase something and create something. But a lot of the times as creatives, when you're creating, I guess my question is, where do you create from? Is it a space of, you know, love? Is it a space of friction? Is it a space of sadness? You know, depression? What is this scene and setting that you have to get yourself into?
Yeah, I think I've gone through almost all of them, right? So whatever it is, it's an imbalance of emotion, right? So it could be, you know, the first few times I created was a sense of injustice, like sort of like societal injustice. And I remember that first time where I don't know if you remember, I did this thing about like, don't tell me what to wear with the Emirati lady in the pool. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah. And it was just like this injustice I saw in a pool party where, you know, this woman was like subjected to a bit of shame for not wanting to be in her bikini in the pool. And the security guard, you know, asked her got her out and made a scene. And it's like I was just uneasy. I'm like, why did he do that? You know? So it's from that small injustice that it didn't even happen to me. It's just something I observed, to all the way to like, yes, there was a depression phase with Rock You're Ugly. There was that anxiety of like, what's next in the world with Mawjood. So it's all these, you know, whatever there's an imbalance in the normal, regular, everyday emotion. That's when like the juices start to flow.
Interesting. And do you feel like that's kind of like a form to release, right? You've got this emotion inside of you, and you need to kind of let something out, and that's when the creativity starts coming out. Through Mawjood, and through, I guess Mawjood came out of lockdown, exactly. And I remember part of our conversations, I used to call you as like, "Sure, Mawjood."
Yeah, exactly.
Are you there?
That's a story I tell too. Like actually, you probably helped me come up with the name, because that's what we were talking about.
Exactly.
You know? Whenever, you know, we'd be on the phone, and actually when I remember the moment actually when I came up with the idea before the name, I just came up with the idea of like, okay, let me help freelancers, you know, get back to work and whatever. I didn't know what to call it, so I was just mocking up some stuff, and I'm like, the name will come. And while I was mocking something up, you called me. And then you know, how you doing with it? I'm like, Wallah Mawjood, man. I'm like, wait, hold on. I'll call you back. That's it. That's the name, you know?
Nice. And it's, you know, it's again through that sort of like level of anxiety and uncertainty that allowed you to release that body of work, right? And it's still ongoing as well until now, Mawjood. And then when you're looking at Rock You're Ugly, that's a whole level of dealing with pain, dealing with grief, and even allowed you to let people deal with their own grief and pain as well through that process. So I guess it's two questions. You've had something that happened to you, a loss of a dear friend, that then caused you to go through that, right? And it was a process for you to almost get over that pain and get over that grief. To what level did you then disconnect from that platform, and it almost had a life of itself? People were kind of just coming on and sharing their stories, and you were just facilitating at that stage, so you were holding space. How was that journey for you, and at what did you disconnect from that process?
Yes, I disconnected from that project a while ago. But the process was, you know, the first. Obviously, I didn't have the intention to do it for my own healing. It just kind of happened. I needed to get my so just for context, you know, I was uncomfortable with my body at some point, and then I made a note and decided to explore people's insecurities and stuff like that. And then I didn't get back to it until my best friend passed away, and I just wanted to just put myself in work.
Yeah.
And I just picked a random project from my notes. I'm like, I'm gonna run with this one and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So it was just that process of getting back to stuff to take my mind off my grief. But instead of taking my mind off my grief, it put me
Back.
in the grief
Yeah.
and made me deal with it, which was great.
Yeah.
Because I started talking to people about their issues, and because they were open with me to tell me their stories, I was then comfortable to tell them what I was going through, and that really helped me out. So yes, there was in the beginning it was very much just the body issues and sort of surface level, and then the more I talked to people, the more comfortable I got to share my story with them, which made them feel more comfortable to share more of their story, and then it just got a lot deeper. And then at one point when I felt like, and I was doing 4, 5, 6 sessions a week, and
there was a lot of heavy weight.
It was very, very heavy. So I did, at some point it's just like I felt I was carrying on too much of other people's pain. So I stopped for a little bit. And then when I came back, I was a bit lighter, and yes, I was holding space and not sharing as much as myself, because I felt like I've kind of done that already.
Yeah.
But then at one point, I just felt like I'm sort of I've dealt with my grief, and I'm kind of happy now, and I don't want to carry other people's burdens daily anymore.
Yeah, sure.
So that's kind of when I put a stop to it. I'm like, what, this is it. The project's over.
Yeah.
This is the body of work. Now let's take this body of work and put it into a book.
Yeah.
And then I remember, I think we had this conversation when the book came out, which was probably a year or two later after the online project. I didn't want to put myself back in that zone, that zone of grief and depression, by marketing it myself. I didn't.
So you really wanted to be disconnected from it.
I really wanted to disconnect from it. So I remember I was reaching out to people like, how do I market this book and sell this book without me being involved? I don't want to be involved. I don't want to touch this thing anymore. And I think I reached out to Nawal, and she helped me out from Exhale and Aswad. So she helped me out with social media. I just really didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to go back to that. I just felt like that was over. I need to personally move on, but this project is beautiful and it's touched a lot of people. So it needs to also continue to live and by itself.
And share the stories. But again, it's a great sample of when you were going through a level of pain, you've created this, body of work that allowed you to be a publisher now as well.
Exactly,
A published author, right?
Yeah.
It's like
you've got very weird.
Yeah, like
oh wait, no.
you've got a book out. So and it's whether it's a reflection of people's stories, and it's a journey that you had to take, and documenting it is a beautiful way to let people learn from other people's experiences. There are many stories, very powerful stories, and it definitely shows you the level of complexity that people carry with them on a day-to-day basis, without even, if you don't touch, if you stay on that level, surface level, you're missing out on that sometimes complexity of us being humans. But just back to
the anxiety part of it.
Correct. Yeah. So I think the common denominator here is we all go through a level of pain, depression, loss that allows us to be creative. And managing, a lot of people try to live without anxiety, and I think to a level it's actually good for us. It's actually, it allows us to express, it allows us to be human, right? In your opinion, for the creative world, like how, what is, what is a healthy way to deal with anxiety, and what is a healthy level of anxiety? And I think you've been in talks a lot about this topic.
Yeah, I mean it's scary. It's scary to realize that if you're not an artist, you want to stay away from anxiety as much as possible. Like that's the general goal. So you manage your stress, work-life balance and all that, and you stay as far away from anxiety as you can. But as an artist, it's scary to realize that the more honestly the level of your work increases by how anxious you are about life, or how depressed you are, or how maybe not just
so all these emo bands had a
like the stronger the emotion you are personally feeling, the better work you'll create. And it's a scary thought, because I personally don't want to go back to that, you know. But I acknowledge and realize that my best work was at my darkest time.
But let me ask you a question there, because a lot of the times when people create a body of work, they don't attach a deep meaning to it. It could be an amazing image, right? But if there isn't a story behind it, if there isn't really deep meaning behind why did you create this body of work, it loses the value. Do you feel like there's a connection between being in pain, depressed, or anxious to allowing you to actually attach a real significant reason why you're creating this body of work?
Yeah, totally. And it's like singles versus albums, right? When you're releasing music. So, I always tell my artist friends, like, look, man, if you release a single, I'll listen to it once. But if you put out an album,
there's a story.
I'm gonna listen to this like over and over. I'll put it on repeat. I'll put it when I'm driving. And each of these songs is probably connected to each other. And you've written this album at this one point in your life, and I can tell what you're kind of going through and maybe relate to at that time. So when you create a body, is different than creating like a single piece. And when you're creating a body of work, you're going through something for a longer period of time, and you can tell that story. And not just you that's telling the story, everybody you're touching in your process of creating that is also creating that story with you. And it's becoming their story as well. And they're going off and telling their people about this story that you're creating. And the whole body of work just takes a whole other level that's not just you. It's not just you that's putting out this material. It's everybody that you've done this with is putting out their material to their people as well. So
and that's what you're saying is attaching a story, right? Attaching a meaning to that expression. And I guess one point to highlight here is, if you're a creator and you're putting something out, understand why you're putting it out, because there's a level of anxiety that people sometimes think about that. Let's say nobody cares, right? And if that's if that's kind of like the wall that you're trying to get over, that nobody really cares, or it's not good enough, why am I writing another song? Why am I writing a book? Why am I printing a picture? Who cares? You know what I mean? So if it's about the perception of the crowd around you or the people, you're never going to win that battle. If there's a deeper meaning and reason why you're creating that expression, it doesn't matter. And when you find that meaning within you, and it becomes almost like satisfying to your soul to just release something because it's processing something within you, that by itself becomes the reason and enough reason for people to be interested.
I think one thing I kind of realized, I usually create something for a specific person that resonates with more people, instead of trying to create something for the masses that hopefully somebody will, But like when you create something for a specific person, and it doesn't have to be like publicly. So in
your mind,
in your mind. And to be very honest with you, I've said this privately to a few people and my wife as well. There's a lot of the stuff I make. And a lot of the topics I create that are just like not bodies of work, just single pieces, are something that my wife had felt or said or something, and I feel that if I say it to her, she won't believe me.
Okay, so,
you know what I mean?
Interesting.
If I come in and it'll turn into an argument or something, So like something will be bothering her, but if I were to give advice, it wouldn't
connect.
Land. It wouldn't land. So it's sort of this like round the way process of like showing her like, look, I create forget I didn't create this for you. This is just something, and then look how many people feel the same way and think this is correct. Maybe you should, you know what I'm saying,
So do you feel like it's a validation? It's a way to validate your opinions?
Exactly, again, the funny thing is, a lot of this stuff is not my personal opinion sometimes. It's somebody else's opinion that I'm like, that's not bad. You know what I mean? I don't... I like the way you think, or I disagree with that, or so. It doesn't have to be always my personal opinion.
Sure.
It could be somebody else's opinion that I'm like, I see.
You subscribe to.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And we talked a little bit about for a creative and yourself. You kind of sit in a really interesting place where there's Waleed, the photographer, that people hire for their campaigns and work and billboards on Shah Road and all that. But then there's also Waleed, the artist. And they're completely two different personas.
Completely two different.
How important it is for artists to have two different personas. And do you feel that if you were to cut out Waleed, the creative, and the artist, would you still be interested in taking photos?
Probably. See, interested is different. Would I be successful at it?
Okay.
Probably not. Interested, I'll probably still be interested. I might get bored eventually, but strangely enough, a lot of people that hire me, even if it's a car campaign or a lifestyle campaign or something, that creative that's hiring me has seen some of my personal work and was like, "Yo, I like this guy. Who is this guy?"
Yeah.
And I find that really strange. And I when people hire me, like, how did you hear about me? Well, how did we connect or whatever? And somebody says, hey, I saw your magazine cover stuff.
Yeah.
And I like the sense of humor, or so I wanted to work with somebody with a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And it's a car brand, so it's
disconnected.
It's very disconnected, but
you're connecting with the people.
Exactly, but it's very important to show your personality in your personal work.
Exactly.
For the because whoever's hiring you for a commercial product is an actual human being that has opinions outside of their job as well. Like again, like whoever's hiring you for brands, that's not their brand. They just work there.
Exactly. And people want to work with people.
Yeah, people want to work with people they like.
100%. So back to that, do you feel, because I think in my journey, right, I feel when I'm not creating personal work, I get lack of excitement, even in my corporate work.
Yeah.
And as a creative, right? So like I kind of need to keep that itch in the personal expression world, because that gives me the sort of latitude to push things into new directions.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is 100% true. Like a lot of people sometimes know you as an artist, and then they want to hire you for the campaign work, but there's no connection between them.
There's no connection, and they can hire any, like, yes, we're good at what we do, but so are other people.
100%.
So like like the next guy is probably just as good or maybe even better than me at whatever they're hiring me for. But they're just hiring me or you just because they like you, because they saw your other stuff.
True.
So it's important.
And it's who you are, and I think you should stay true to yourself, right? So that expression comes with, it has to be authentic, it's got to be true to you, and it's got to hold meaning within yourself. And if you're not, you shouldn't be doing it just for the fact that you want to be different. And I think that's where things start falling outside the line. So, but we still got time.
This is burning at a good pace.
Yeah, it is a good.
I still got more to say.
Yes, I think bringing it, I think, back to managing anxiety. What are the ways that you manage anxiety during this past year?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I haven't really thought about it. I think when I do feel anxious, I am aware that I'm feeling anxious.
Okay. What do you feel anxious about? Waleed Shah.
About the future. It's always the future.
Have you not accepted the fact that nobody, I guess to a certain degree, right? Nobody has that answer.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, nobody has that answer. But I think as a freelancer, as a creative, it's always you always need to also stay ahead of the curve too.
Sure.
Right? Because once it passes you by, it's really hard to get in. So I think maybe even at this point, if you're starting out as a photographer, not to discourage anybody, but if you're starting out as a photographer in Dubai, there's a lot of competition, man. But like maybe 10 years ago, if you started 10 years ago,
it was easier
to cut through. You know, so it's kind of that. So I'm always kind of thinking about like what's next, and also it needs to kind of align to what I'm interested in. So for example, you're very much like video.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
Okay. I really don't like I don't enjoy the video.
The process.
I don't enjoy that process.
Yeah.
So I missed that boat.
Okay.
Like for me to start as a video guy now.
Yeah.
I'm way behind.
But the thing is, if you don't like it, then you shouldn't do it. Right? You shouldn't do it to start with.
So I'm always trying to find, I'm trying to think and find
the things you're interested in.
What's the next thing that could be a big thing that I'm also interested in to keep my life and business going, you know? So that's always kind of what I'm anxious about. And that's what I'm anxious about right now, given like, you know, what's happening with the, you know, the online world and the metaverse and crypto and the NFTs and all that. I'm just like, man, I need to find out, first of all, if I'm interested. And if I am interested,
what do you do?
What do I do? How do I understand this more? You know?
Are you releasing an NFT?
I am putting out something. It's not announced yet, but you know, I'm putting out 3 NFTs with Shiny NFT. They're a group based out of here.
Nice.
So it comes out in mid-November. But yeah, I mean, I'm also. I mean, I'll. I don't think we've talked about this before, but I also signed up to a coding course.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's like a proper like 5-year program. Like a, you know, like that kind of level. You know?
And that's the kind of edge, right? That's the kind of edge that you need to kind of upskilling yourself the whole time.
And I don't know what I'm gonna get out of this.
Yeah.
Thankfully it's free.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those new ones. You know, Abu Dhabi always has like these new initiatives and stuff like that. So it's like a peer-to-peer learning thing.
Nice.
And I didn't get in yet. I passed the first first set of tests.
Nice.
There's another set of tests where it's like a 26-day marathon of coding.
Wow.
And you know, you gotta take some time off. Like it's 10 to 15 hours a day.
It's a commitment.
It's a big commitment. So if you pass that, and there's no selection process and there's no grade, you just have to make it through.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like they tell you that. Like if you don't quit in 26 days, you're in. Like we're not selecting. There's no limit seats. Nothing. If you make it through, you're in.
Wow.
So I'm just waiting for like the next batch of these ones. So like it's that kind of thing. I'm just trying to explore like what is next. I want to learn.
But that's really interesting about you, because you don't shy away from learning, right? And it's when people get stuck in a certain way in their life, there's something that they're not exploring enough. And you know, the level of curiosity that we have to maintain to keep progressing and to keep kind of like adding on to our skill set and toolbox is you have to be humble to learn, and you've got to accept that the world around us is moving at a much faster pace than it used to be like 10 years ago even, or 5 years ago. So to adapt to this kind of pace, like we've got to do things differently. And if you're trying to do things the same way, you know, and I appreciate that about you as well, because we haven't really talked about this, about the coding course, and I think it's pretty interesting. And I think, look, you know, growth is never going to be linear, and you're going to have to add things to your toolbox, and then you're going to probably figure out why later on.
Exactly. Like I don't know. I don't know what that looks like, but I like the one thing I want to surround myself with. I want to surround myself with people at this point in life that understand or are interested about the new online,
the new world right?
that we're gonna go into. So I want to be part of those conversations, and I don't know anybody that you know, nobody in my circle currently has that knowledge or into that. So like I need to put myself out there to be able to have the language and have those discussions with these people.
So that's another way that the creative anxiety has helped you put you into that that position.
Like honestly, when I tell you when you start off this conversation, is like what are you anxious about? The future. Like I am anxious about the future. I am anxious about where this media buy is going to be, because that's what we sell. That's our business.
And where's the attention? Where's the attention?
So you know, I was watching a video recently. It's like, you know, they're comparing the stats of like the views, right? You know, like the NBA finals gets, you know, 7.5 million views. The whatever other sports gets like 2.5 million, whatever. They had a concert in Fortnite.
The metaverse.
In Fortnite. I can't remember the DJ's name. You know, the guy with the
bucket.
You know, with like, you know, the white hat.
I know who you're talking about.
I can't remember his name.
It's slipped my mind as well.
27 million people tuned in. 27 million people went into the metaverse for this concert. Like you know, 3 times more than the NBA finals. Wow. You know, so it's those kind of things. And like, okay, you can buy land in the metaverse. You know, people will have a house and you can put art there. Maybe you can sell art. Yeah, so you know, Nike and Gucci will have stores that you can, you know, put your
dress up your character and have
so who's gonna code those? Who, like, is there is there like a thing there? Can I design something there? I don't know. You know, I have no idea, but I'd like to be involved in these conversations, and I think that's where the whole coding course.
You know, this kind of reminds me a lot of the you know, science fiction movies where you find people living in like small containers, and in the real world, you know, their life might not look too exciting, but then in the digital world,
Yeah.
they run this like fancy, crazy life that is almost their alter ego in a way.
Yeah.
Is that, do you feel, and maybe we're deviating a little bit from the topic, but do you feel like this is going to separate us from reality?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's going to be it's going to be one of those like matrix situations where like at some point you as even now when people are like they're engrossed in their businesses or whatever, and then the luxury is when you can disconnect and turn off your phone and go off to a retreat.
Yeah, true.
It's going to be something like that where like you still have these the people that value the real life, and then people that are the majority of the masses are in the digital world
and the metaverse.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're almost in it now with the online world on our phones, but there's still that disconnection of actual reality and the
Bringing it back maybe to like anybody that's wanting to start now, but they're anxious to share their work. Anything, any advice that you want to give them? Photographers, songwriters, people that are still haven't really taken that first step, and maybe haven't really identified with themselves as an artist or as a photographer. What kind of advice would you give them?
I think don't wait till you finish it. Start putting stuff out while you're creating. So I think almost all of my projects that I do, I never wait to finish something, because once you finish something and you put all this work into it and you keep going back and trying to perfect it and everything, once you put it out, and a lot of times your projects won't hit with anybody and people won't like it, or you won't just get the response that you're expecting. So you kind of you get demotivated and you just don't do something else. But what I usually do is I'll have an idea and I'll start to execute. Once I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of content up from that to start to put it out, I'll start to put it out and then gauge the response, and then I'll pivot. Because people will give you advice and be like, yo, this I really resonated with that, and this felt like that, and things you don't even you had no intention of putting out a certain message, but that message got received that way.
There was a big debate on
and that's when I realized that, so whatever you put out has a message that you may not intend to put out, but if somebody receives that message and tells you, then you can sometimes capitalize on that and be like, oh, this works, let me do more of that, and then you kind of continue. And that's what happens with almost all of my projects, where Rocky or Ugly was like that. We put out 5 and then it just got deeper and deeper. People reached out and wanted to be part of it, and it becomes a body of work.
And it almost takes a life of its own, right? It becomes its own identity that you are contributing to, but in a way, you don't own that. You don't own the public's perception of your work.
Exactly.
You can release the work. It means something to you, but you can never own the narrative of what people think that piece of work is. So I think the anxiety may be around, what do people think about my work? We have to accept that we'll never own that narrative. And it's as long as you're comfortable and confident for the reasons why you're releasing this, then you just got to let it go and let it do its work in the universe.
Let people have opinions. The more people have strong opinions, negative or positive, at least you've
evoked emotion.
Struck a nerve.
100%.
I always say whenever somebody says because now Rocky or Ugly has like a separate page, so it's not like part of my daily, but every once in a while somebody will I get that a lot. It's like, why do you say ugly? This is not ugly, this is beautiful. So I'm like, look, you got to read the book. I'm glad it struck a nerve enough for you to
ask that question,
to message me and be pissed off about it. Thank you for that. Now I think you should go read the book and you
have a better context.
Exactly.
100%. And I think if a expression of work that doesn't evoke any emotion, then I guess it is a bit of a failure on a certain level. But if it makes you angry, if it makes you laugh, if it raises your eyebrows and asks you, makes you wonder about a few things, then it did its job in a way. But as a creator, I think it's not our responsibility, whatever you create, to own the narrative of how people perceive your work. And as soon as you realize that detachment, you become almost immune to people's opinions. Be like, cool, that's up to you, man. That's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not why I created this, but that's cool for you.
Exactly.
You know, like,
I mean, I know why I did it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
It's like if that's how you perceive it, then it's a reason. You've gone through something in your life that made you perceive this body work this way. You know what I mean? It's a reflection of your journey. So go back to that and see why. When was but just let's take it back a little bit, because there was a saying that I heard recently. For anybody that's not identified as a creative, but wants to be creative, right? Let's think of, like, you know, the people who pick up a guitar, play a song on the weekend, but they're not really musicians. Somebody who picks up the camera, takes some photos and prints them, but they're not really a photographer. And what I mean by not really is they don't identify themselves as a musician or as a photographer. There's a new level, right? So I think the first thing that happens when you start identifying yourself as a creative photographer, musician, is resistance from the circle around you. People around you go, oh, really? What? You're a photographer now? Like, what does this mean? What are you going to do? How are you going to make your money? So, number one, when was the first time you identified yourself as a photographer?
Yeah. So it was, that whole resistance, dude. The way you ask the question is spot on, because you get the resistance from the people around you.
100%. Yeah.
So you know, I was still in the oil business. I was still an engineer, and when I started shooting photos, you know, we had White Cube, the recording studio. So we started shooting photos there, and then I realized I can get hired for shooting photos. So I switched in my mind. I'm like, you know what? Whenever I go out, forget the engineering thing. Nobody's gonna hire me as an engineer. I already have a job. Nobody's gonna, you know,
nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna meet somebody that's gonna hire me as an engineer for anything for the day.
Yeah.
But if I introduce myself as a photographer, maybe whoever I'm meeting has like a birthday party.
Yeah.
You know, I was at that level at that point.
Yeah, sure.
Like a birthday party or an event or whatever. They'll hire me for the day. I'll make some money.
Sure.
So, you know, I switched to that. So whenever I'd introduce myself, I'm a photographer, you know, cool. But then what happens is when my mom is with me,
you
know, that's when it gets
tricky.
She
like,
almost
she
lost it a little bit, you know. So, you know, we were out together. And you know, she bumps into one of her friends. Now it's her friends. You know? So when it's random people on the street, she'll just let me, you know, she just
do your thing.
But like when it's her friend, you know, so you know, we bump into her. Hi, how you doing? Oh, what do you do? Oh, what do you do? I'm like, well, I'm a photographer. He's like, and then she like flipped. He's like, no. So you know, photography is just a hobby. He's an engineer, mashallah. You know, you know,
and that's social. That's a social perception, right?
No, mom. I'm not like. I'm a photographer now, so I had that conversation with my mom. Like, I'm like, look, when I'm introducing myself, I'm a photographer. I don't care about the engineering thing. I have the job, I have the salary, cool. But I need more, and the photography thing is going to give me more.
Yeah. How difficult was it for you to have the conversation?
Very, very difficult. I mean, it wasn't difficult for me. It was difficult for her. Yeah. You know, like at that point, my family in general, like they also like, Waleed, you kind of know who you are and you stand by whatever, regardless whatever everybody thinks. Yeah, I'm kind of proud of that. A lot of people, a lot of my family are like annoyed at that. Like I'm very when I have an opinion, when I have an opinion, I will hold my ground. Yeah, you know, I don't have many opinions, but when I do have one. This is the opinion. Like so like I know who I am. So I was comfortable having that conversation, but it was very hard for her to let go of the image of her son, you know, in the suit and tie or the hard hat or you know, they paid for my school.
Exactly.
You know? This is what we paid for. You know?
And it's that conditioning, right? It's a social conditioning, and the fact that it's a new territory that's not really identifying, you know, with an engineer or a doctor. It's easy to identify with those characters than, you know, a creative or a photographer or something like that. But you know, and this is a big portion of why a lot of people maybe don't want to identify as a photographer or a creative, because they don't even want to have these conversations. Or, you know what I mean? So, but what made you stand your ground? Like, what made you believe to your core that you're going to be a photographer?
Again, you know that part where I said you start releasing bits and pieces, even if it's not perfect. It was one of those. Okay. You know, I don't have to believe something to my core that I'm going to make it. You know? Sure. You know, but I can. Put it out and like stand my ground and see what happens. Like I'm very comfortable being wrong.
Okay, cool.
You know what I mean? Like I'm happy for things to fail.
Yeah.
You know, but if I'm like wishy-washy about it, it will definitely fail.
100%.
You know,
100%.
but like if even if you don't believe in it fully, and you just be like, this is it, this is what's happening, I'm gonna do it. The world around you,
you've got to be confident. You've got to be confident about who you are.
They'll believe you. You
100%.
know. So you put that out. You know, you put that out. You know, one at a time.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Yeah.
And it just kind of builds that confidence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. And I think, you know, a big portion of us transitioning to a professional expression of what we want to be is identifying with it, right? And going through the resistance.
Yeah.
And again, you know, the anxiety of it, the resistance of it will allow you to become who you are.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't have these difficult conversations, you'd probably still be in oil and gas, still, you know, doing this on the side and not really sure. And look, I will say, and it's something that I've experienced myself, if you are going to do something part-time, it's going to give you part-time returns.
Yes.
If you're going to do something full-time, it's going to give you the full-time return. So it's up to you. You know what I mean? And it's,
I'll tell you one other thing about that identifying yourself. So I teach a course called The Business of Photography. I haven't taught in a while, but like when I do teach it, the first thing I say is you have to identify yourself as a photographer.
Yeah.
And I get everybody to stand up, right? And then actually before that, I ask everybody individually. There's usually maybe 10, 15 people in the room.
Yeah.
So who are you? What do you do? And everybody's answer is always like, well, I do this and I'm an accountant and I'm trying and
it's
blah,
not
blah,
clear,
blah.
right?
It's
never
so
clear.
Unclear.
Yeah.
So when everybody's done, there's always maybe like one or two people that are like, yeah, I'm a photographer, I do this, blah, 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 you know? So when everybody's done, I ask the crowd, I'm like, okay guys, now that everybody's introduced themselves, who would you hire?
Yeah, nice.
You know, which one of these people would you hire?
Nice.
And it's the people that said, I'm a photographer.
And clear about who they are.
Clear, exactly. So then the next step is like, I get everybody to stand up and be like, hi, my name is so-and-so and I'm a photographer.
Nice.
Stop. Don't tell me about your landscape work. Don't tell me about, you know, you're a photographer. Let me ask you what I need and you can say yes.
Yeah.
You know, if you do food and I ask for fashion, you can still say yes.
You
can still do it. You know?
Exactly.
But if you tell me you're a food guy and I want some fashion stuff, I'm not hiring you.
Exactly. You're done.
You're done. You're finished.
100%.
So, hey, my name is this. I'm a photographer. And stop right there. You know, and then I get everybody to do it again and introduce themselves one by one, blah, blah, and then they're comfortable saying I'm a photographer and they go into the world being, you know.
It's very interesting because I think as humans, we go through many iterations of ourselves, right? And like you're saying, like your anxiety about the future, at a certain degree, you're going to have to reinvent yourself. And that line of, my name is Waleed and I am is going to change, right?
Exactly,
So I think it's important for all of us to reflect and to define who we are. Maybe, I don't know, every 5 years or every 10 years or something like that. But that line should be so confident in your delivery that it allows people to believe you, right? Because if you don't, 100%, but it's who you are, right? It's how do you want to spend the majority of your life is. And I think, one question that I asked myself was, what's the one thing I want to do for people, for the community around me, for free, 12 hours a day, if money was, not a problem. If I had all the money in the bank and I just wanted to do something for people, what would that be? When you answer that, that'll help you to identify, okay, who are you right now, right? And that's okay to change, and we should accept that change as it comes. Because if you're still going to be resistant to the idea of you changing, then you're going to fall into the same trap. You know, like you might still not be doing what you really enjoy doing. So we should be flexible in who we are, but at the same time, that delivery, that line is so important because if you don't know who you are, then how you expect people to know who you are? It's super important. And I think number one, identify yourself with the person you want to be, even though if you're not that person right now, because you will go through resistance, you will go through that, but you at least hold the space for yourself to say that, look, this is who I want to be, and then the world will start gravitating towards you with the opportunities that allow you to be that person. Since you identified yourself with as a photographer, till today, what are the things that you've kind of like changed about how you identify yourself? Is there anything that's changed, or are you still the same?
Currently, I'm still the same. I still say the same thing. And then I've since the whole Rock Your Ugly Mojood magazine cover thing, I've been on sort of the TV and podcasts and all that. So I start to define myself in two ways, and you did that perfectly at the beginning of the episode, where like there's two sides of Waleed, and I need to say that because
there's the artist here.
Exactly, because the whole purpose No, not the whole purpose, but like one of the main things about having the two personas is that one feeds the other.
Yeah.
You know, so if somebody's watching me or listening to this and I don't talk about my commercial stuff, I've failed for my business.
Yeah.
So like all this stuff, yes, it's cool and it touches people and it talks about society and makes you think, but also a big chunk of that purpose is to be like, oh, let me check out his commercial stuff.
Yeah.
What can he do for me?
And let's talk about that, because recently we've touched base on this a little bit, where I said, like, when you look at your Instagram feed, which kind of in today's world, it's your business card, right? It's your company, it's who you are, it's your personal brand. The majority of that work was your artist work, and there was very little of your corporate work. That we were kind of like saying, do you still think that people still know that you're doing corporate work? So do you think owning that narrative is also as important, right? So like what you put out into the world and the way you're putting it out into the world is the way that the world's going to perceive you as well. So I think it's 100% true that I think we need to identify with the personas that we have, and they could be multiple personas. There's you, the artist, there's you, the photographer, and how do you own both personas at the same time? And I think that's when it gets a bit tricky.
Yeah, it gets there was an imbalance recently, because of COVID and because of the uncertainty of the future and because of the dry Dubai spell summer that we go through. My work that I was putting out was all personal work. And you'd need to scroll way down to find my commercial stuff. And I didn't have any new commercial stuff. It was all old because we weren't working. We were locked down, So I was like, okay, am I not getting commercial work because I'm posting all my personal stuff, or is it just not? So then I switched. We had that conversation. And then I kind of switched to, okay, let me put out some old stuff, put out some behind the scenes videos. And I'm not sure if it worked or not, but I did start working again.
Interesting.
I'm not sure if that was the case.
That was a connection.
That was a connection. But in general, yes, there's. I mean, the last year is a very specific year because of that imbalance. But in general, I'm always balancing between my personal and commercial stuff.
Very cool. And I think, it's going to be a journey. And I think everybody's going to have a unique way of expressing themselves and how to, how to put your personal brand out in the world as well. But, we've touched on how all of us, we go through anxiety and we all go through, and it's, in a way, it's fuel to our creative work and creative body. To what level do you feel like you seek it? To what level do you feel like you're putting yourself in discomfort situations just to be grounded in that creation energy? I'm running away from it right now.
Okay. In general, I'm always trying to avoid it and run away from it. It's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable, and it takes a toll on my personal life. Especially like my marriage. It really takes a toll on my marriage when I'm like that deep in anxiety. It reflects, and we're fighting at home, and so like I these days or in the last several months, or I'm avoiding it because I need that to be okay. And until my general life is okay, I don't choose to go into like a deep anxiety thing. I almost never choose anyways.
Sure.
Right. But it's like if it happens because of an external factor, such that my best friend passing away or COVID or something, then you fall into it, right? You fall into it, and it is what it is. And I just kind of acknowledge that this happened, and let me channel it, and I'll create something out of it. But going myself to seek that level of anxiety is I don't do it, and I probably wouldn't do it.
So I mean, let's clarify it maybe to the people that maybe haven't really connected with that yet. So a lot of times we live our life in a very sometimes mundane, very kind of like everything is the same. It's Groundhog Day. And sometimes I do this when I'm like, you know what? I'm packing my bags, I'm out. Like just random. What happened? No, I'm fucking out. Forget it. I'm out, And what I'm seeking at that point of time is change. Is I'm trying to fucking flip the balance, you know what I mean? So like I'm looking for something to go off, you know what I mean? Like cool, like what new experiences can we have? So that sometimes creates an expression
Yeah.
or creates an inspiration or, allows you to go into a new journey. Are you seeking that at all? Like when things are going like super normal and everything is kind of like vanilla?
So when things are very good in life, I'll go seek it. So for example, before all this happened, I did, if you remember the Father's Day project.
Yeah.
So like everything was great. In my life, everything was I was like flying. I'm like I need something.
Everything's stable. Everything's under control.
I can go and mess some stuff up a little bit, and it'll be okay. You know what I mean? So like I went and found something and created something that it's not that I'm feeling, but I wanted that adventure.
So let's tell people a little bit about it as well for context.
So for context, I had this idea of, to be completely honest, all I wanted to do is travel
on a
motorcycle in a foreign country. This was my purpose. To be very honest, I'm like, okay, I wanted to connect with the people of whichever country I'm going to. Right, that was the purpose. I'm like, how do I do that? How do I get into people's houses? I want to get into the local people's houses.
In a foreign country while you're riding a motorbike.
Exactly. Well, that was my thing.
That sounds like a pretty epic journey for an imbalance.
I wanted to connect with the locals.
Adventure.
In a random country. So I thought about it. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, how can I do this? So I'm like, what I looked at my calendar. I'm like, what like important dates are coming up in the time frame that I'm able to travel. So I looked it up, and there was Father's Day.
Nice.
There was Father's Day. I don't know what is it, June, May, whatever. So I'm like, okay, Father's Day, fine. So I'm like, what can I do for Father's Day? Where can I go? And then I honestly, it was like 2 a.m. I'm in bed, I'm awake. My wife's asleep, and I'm just thinking about this. And it was 2 a.m. And then I'm like, okay. And then I remembered my buddy Nikith, the photographer from Abu Dhabi. I'm like, dude, he's going to Kerala at those times.
Okay.
He's from Kerala. I'm like, maybe I can do something in Kerala. And then I'm like, so I texted him in 2 a.m. I'm like, yo, Nikith, man, if you're awake, I just had an idea. I want to do something about fathers in Kerala. I don't know what it is yet, but I know you're there. Would you do this with me? Because I needed at least a translator. You know? I can't speak the language. He's like, yeah, sure, I'm there, man. I'm like, okay, cool. Let me think about this.
Nice.
So what happened is, later on, I started flushed out the idea. So we took photos of 9 fathers whose families are in Kerala.
Nice.
And I interviewed them and got messages in Malayalam and translated into English, and for their families. And we took the photos to Kerala.
Nice.
Printed them there, framed them, rented motorcycles, and then we went to all the villages
to deliver them to
the families.
Nice.
And when we delivered to the families, they invited us in. We had some food. We had a chat, and then we took a portrait of the family holding the portrait of the father.
Nice.
And then took it back to the father in Abu Dhabi on Father's Day.
Amazing.
So that was
you seeking that adventure.
Yes, I was seeking that adventure.
Nice.
I did the same. I did the same thing in the Philippines, but that's at that trip, that's when my best friend passed away. So I stopped that. But there was another time where yes, everything was going great in my life. I went to Vietnam for a month, and I just my challenge there. This was that transition from the oil and gas thing to full-time photography. So 3 years into the photography thing, I felt like I started a successful business in photography, and I just wanted to know that if I were to move away from the UAE, could I do this again?
I remember that actually, and you went to Vietnam, right?
So I went to Vietnam. I just chose a random country. I went to Vietnam, no contacts, no nothing.
It's like, I'm Waleed, I'm a photographer, I'm here.
Exactly. And dude, I made it to this
I saw like
models. What's it called?
A beauty pageant or something?
I made it to,
I remember texting you like, hey, what are you doing there?
So someone's like, yo, you speak English, we need an English speaker. I'm like, yeah, cool. He's like, yeah, we've got like Vietnam's next top model going on. Do you want to be a host? I'm like, all right, cool. I'll be a host. So like I wanted to start a business in Vietnam. Just to see, you know. So I went and did that. I did some workshops. I got some work. I figured that hey, in probably like 6 or 7 months time, if I spent there, I could start a successful business. Okay, I got my fix. okay, peace.
Yeah,
Now I'm comfortable. You know,
Yeah,
I came home comfortable. If anything happens, if we need
you know
to
that
move,
you can recreate this
I can recreate
anywhere
this
else.
anywhere else. Yeah.
What allows you to take that much of a risk? You know, move countries, put yourself in a completely alien environment, foreign environment. What is, you know, like a lot of people might freak out with the idea itself. Like, no, why should I move? Why should I like create that imbalance? Is it the fact that so what are the pillars that you rely on when you're taking that adventure?
Yeah. It's always been like the dream, and like thankfully, thank God, I think we're there. Is that financial freedom?
Yeah.
Right. So thankfully, you know, yes, I had the, you know, a good education. We went into oil business. You know, there was good money there. So when I made the switch to photography, I had like a nice cushion.
Yeah.
That if it fails, you know,
you'll be fine.
I'll be fine. I can just go and find a job, you know, in a year or something. So it's always building that cushion before you take that big risk.
Sure.
You know, and a lot of people, you know, all the motivational stuff you see online is all, you know, take the plunge and like you have to be hungry and blah blah blah, like all that stuff, and like take the risk. Because I don't really believe in that.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I think it's. So
do you prefer doing calculated risks?
Yes, yeah, definitely calculated risk. Like I wouldn't pull the plug on something that's really like I wanted to leave my job, my old job for 2 years.
Yeah.
Before you know, I pulled the plug because, well, I didn't pull the plug myself. I got laid off because of the oil price crash. They just, you know, they laid off everybody. So, and thankfully I didn't leave because, you know, they gave me a nice severance package that served as the cushion.
Yeah.
You know, if I had left, I would have really I would have struggled. You know.
Yeah.
So it's all these calculated risks and building that cushion for you to take the next risk. Mm-hmm. You know, so you know, I take life in sort of like 5-year intervals. You know, in the first 5 years, build your cushion, then take another risk.
Yeah.
5 years, build the cushion, take another risk. You know. Yeah.
It's great, man. Well, I think in closing, thanks for joining the first episode of The Human Condition in this new context and new format. I hope you've enjoyed it and taken we're almost there, right? On the inside. So I hope there's a lot of information there. So I hope you've taken something to inspire you to take that journey and almost like be friends with the anxiety of the creator's anxiety and know how to, you know, work with it to create and to be creative. Waleed, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, man. That was awesome.